Hey everybody, welcome to Obscurities in Miniature. It is almost time for my birthday, which means, well, you're going to be getting a real heavy-handed dose of obscurities in literature coming your way really soon here, because you know what? One of the things that I always, for time infinitesimal now, have always wanted for my birthday is books. I'm a big book nerd. I will be honest with you. And I find that as things continue to go more and more digital, I find myself taking comfort and solace in the fact that, old habits really do die hard. And maybe one of my birthday gifts this year will be some more shelves to put all these books on, because that's one thing. It just never seems like there's enough shelves. And this is an interesting one. This is something a little bit different, but actually ties in a lot to this channel and really kind of, I don't know, like does some deep deconstruction of yours truly, High Lord Tamberlane here. This is Miniature Worlds, files of illustrators who draw small fantasy worlds. Now, Hakoniwa Sekai would be the name here. What's interesting is this is kind of like a sticker attached to the cover. And the cover itself is made up of many of said miniature worlds. And I mean, I'm going to have to probably zoom in to really let you guys appreciate just the absurd amount of details that get shoved into these. And you may feel that, well, that's kind of a change of pace for Mr. High Lord Tamberlane here, but actually it's not. I was going to point out, so the price tags are actually in both UK and US dollar and pound, which is interesting to me because when you take off the dust jacket, there's nothing outside of the spine to really designate what this book is. You can see the kanji right there. English name as well. And I almost wonder if the dust jacket itself is made for outside of Japan's, overseas audiences. I've encountered quite a few of these books in various art museums, exhibitions, places in Japan, and I feel like they're never fully in Japanese, that they're always kind of bilingual, and maybe that's the case. I first came across this book in Japanese, or at least with a Japanese cover, and it was shrink wrapped at the time, so I don't know for sure one way or the other if it had a sticker or not. I'm just now kind of curious about that. But this is an interesting one, and as I said, this is kind of really doing a bit of a deep dive into me, because I feel like a lot of the stuff in this book has always been kind of present in my life. And, as I mentioned, I'm a big book nerd. And going way, way back as my birthday comes, we're talking to probably toddler years, probably around 4 or 5 years old. I can recall having a copy of Dr. Seuss's Sleep book. And besides that, I also had the Zoo book with young Gerald McGrew. And I can always remember being so entranced and enthralled with those big double-page splashes that Dr. Seuss would draw, usually at the end of the books, with just the really intricate, bizarre architecture, and there's just so much stuff going on the page. And unfortunately, all my books are tucked away at work because my classroom is getting new furniture, so I honestly would be pulling them out and talking about that right now with you guys and showing you what I mean exactly. But if you're familiar with those books, you probably have a good idea of those pages. In the Sleep book, it's where the whole town is going to sleep, and you have all the people sleeping all over in weird little nooks and crannies. The last page of If I Ran the Zoo, animals everywhere interacting with the audience, and the zoo goers. And I can recall, as a child even, wanting to make my own worlds and really being enthralled with that idea. But as a kid, you're limited with usually the amount of paper you'd have. And so I can remember trying to cram as much stuff, on a typical piece of paper. And all throughout school, I remember, we always had limited space to draw. Oftentimes when you have like the writing assignments, teachers would give you like a little box to, put an illustration or whatever to go along with whatever you're writing about. I mean, I did that the same with my students for years. And I've always been interested in that. And I think if you look at a lot of the stuff in terms of books, and I haven't even opened this one yet, that I've had on this channel, I always talk about like trading card art, card game artwork. And I think it's a really similar concept. On a trading card, and especially like in a trading card game, you have a very small spot to put that art. And you need to make it clear about everything that's going on with that piece. You don't have the big canvases that more renowned painters would tend to work with. But you work with what you got. And that's what this book is all about. It's artists, not just from Japan either, artists from around the world that focus on that compact and everything that fits in there. And I just think that is the coolest idea. So let's get into it. So this book has a very specific layout, and I love the fact, and this is so Japanese of it, that they kind of explain to you what everything is. So you get the name, what language they use, their email address, if they use any kind of social media like Pixiv or one of those, and then you have a commentary on everybody. So like here's their first one. You can see the example. They have the name, everything they do, which artist number they are in the book, some notes from them, and I always like they have these little zoomed in views. Now, unfortunately, as you can see here, a lot of that is going to be in Japanese. So that is unfortunate, but not all of it is. And that's just the crazy thing with this book. There are so many little pictures to focus on. And if you grew up with like the Where's Waldo type books, I think you'll find a lot of comfort and enjoyment in these pieces. I almost liken it to something like Lego kits, especially some of those more creator-focused, really fantastically detailed building sets. How everything has to fit, and everything makes its own little vignette of a story or, what's going on in that household. I can remember owning some old Lego idea books that didn't even bother to really have instructions and were just full of pictures of houses and places and things. And it gave me a really similar vibe while looking through this, in that you have just pictures and you just kind of let your mind go with it. What's going on and like all the little details. And as I said, it's kind of cool that not everything is from Japan. This is like Waldo level insanity of stuff. But you have everybody from all over the place that does this kind of work. And there's just so much to enjoy and appreciate. If you enjoy this kind of work, that is, I should say. The fact that we can focus on such little spots. And there's all kinds of stylistic choices. There's people that work with pixels, that work with more real-life type illustrations, more cartoony. It's just all over the place. Oops. And again, I can almost envision this like something like a Lego set, with just the pieces representing things. Now, some of it, as you can see, is going to be in English, but like I said, the captions themselves really aren't. And I don't think it's necessarily if it's an English-speaking artist or Japanese artist, the fact that it is a Japanese book, even if it is being published worldwide. There's just so much going on there. Guys, I'm barely like 20 pages in, too, and have barely shown you anything, but that's half the fun, right? Kae, this artist's primarily one of those pixel artists, And if anything, it reminds me of Final Fantasy Brave Exvius with, what were those cards you would get in the game? Same kind of concept. They'd have like a little animated picture. But again, limited space. Actually, I mean, it looks like a Final Fantasy Tactics level almost. Very limited space. Limited color palette. Use it to your advantage. Some of this stuff reminds me of like Guillaume Singlin's art, which wouldn't be surprising. I'm curious if the guy's in here himself. He's probably too busy doing other stuff. Again, if you are a fan of this type of book, I think you'll really enjoy it. I think it's one of those cool little kind of books to have sitting out on the coffee table or when guests come over, if you're one of those kind of people that enjoy having books around the house like I do. It's a shame I've already clocked over 10 minutes and I've barely shown any of this stuff. But if you're like me and you lose yourself in these kinds of pieces of art, I think, again, like I said, there's a lot to really enjoy. So yeah, I'm going to stop there because, like I said, there is just a whole lot of fun to pour over in this book. And it's not even that big a book. It's kind of on the short and stubby side. But most of Pye's books tend to be in weird formats. I know some of them tend to be longer. This one's kind of more squat, but that's half the fun. It's like a miniature book in that case that goes with the miniature worlds. So hopefully, if you're like me, enjoy looking at those nicely compacted pictures that are able to convey all the information they need to in a very clear and specific way, then I think you're really going to have fun with this one, because I know I did. So with that said then, this has been High Lord Tamberlane with Obscurities and Miniatures, saying thanks for watching, and we'll see you back here soon. Bye-bye.